Hello, listeners and readers of AwardsWatch.com. This is the Awards Watch Podcast, episode 201. Back after a week of being off. I'm the executive editor of the website here called AwardsWatch.com, and I'm very sleep deprived still. Ryan McQuade. Joining me today is the editor-in-chief that is also, I think, still very sleep deprived, Erik Anderson.
No, I'm amazing. Everything is perfect. Hello, everybody.
He just is saying that on a bunch of drugs. We're also joined by Dan Bayer.
Hello, everybody.
And Kevin Lee.
Hey, I think we're all sleep deprived.
I think, yeah.
Not anymore. I've been back for a few days. I've been sleeping. It's been great.
It's been great, but you could always use more sleep, I think.
That's true.
And not just a movie at TIFF.
And Kevin is still trapped in Canada because they will not.
Yeah, they won't. They're like, it's like the Hotel California. You can check out anytime you like, but Kevin will never leave. So we're here to talk about the Toronto International Film Festival. We took off last week. Hopefully you all didn't miss us too much. We had an episode of Director Watch in between to keep you all preoccupied, but we had a bunch of stuff premiere and also get reshown at the Toronto International Film Festival. It was my first year at the film festival. It was your fourth?
This is my fifth.
All right. And Erik, you've been there all 48 years?
Yes. I actually started the festival.
That's correct.
Yes.
Yeah. It's a real shame they don't ever,
babe.
It's a real shame they don't ever acknowledge that. It's
No, not even, I should
rude.
have like my own box at the TIFF Bell light box.
Or at the Princess of Wales, just be like, it's the Princess of Erik.
Absolutely. Yes.
Yeah.
In those box seats, those wonderful, lovely box seats.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
And Kevin, this is your third year at TIFF?
Third in general, second in person.
Okay, because there was the virtual year as well. That happened a couple of years ago. Well, we're going to talk about a ton of movies that we saw. Some that we did talk about a little bit when we did our Telluride episode. So if you didn't hear Erik and my thoughts over there on some of the films that we'll talk about, we'll probably give a little bit more insight on those today, but wanted to give the crew here a chance at least to talk about some of them. Obviously, a ton of films that were at Venice that transitioned over to Toronto as well, but then also a ton of TIFF premieres to go alongside of it. But how did everyone feel about the fest overall? Erik, I know you've been to this a couple of years, Dan and Kevin as well. It's my first year, but how did you feel was the fest overall, sort of the mood, the energy, before even talking about the films?
Probably a little better than I was anticipating, but there was, still obviously the air of the lack of, big red carpet stardom kind of thing because of the SAG-AFTRA strike still going on. So, one of the things that's kind of a big deal at TIFF is closing down King Street and having the sidewalks just absolutely bombarded and sardined by looky-loos and fans and people that want to get a glimpse of stars on the red carpet. And there was still some of that, but certainly less than it usually is. But nothing got in the way of enjoying the films and seeing people that, sometimes we only see once a year in person because we're from all over the place and all walks of life. And that part is, I think, for a lot of people, one of their favorite parts. And that was certainly not lost this year at all, because there was plenty of that. Lots of first time meetups of, people that you interact with all the time online. And that's always really, really fun. But I think the lineup of films was generally good. Again, not the same kind of huge wow blam premieres, but it didn't matter because everything that was just underneath that in a normal year was pretty great, and then we just got to focus on that.
Yeah, it going to both back to back in terms of the highs of Telluride. They were so high, and some of those movies made it over here and some of them didn't. And obviously they'll make them over to New York and a lot of the regional festivals over the next couple of weeks. But there was still plenty of really good, interesting cinema to talk about. I just don't think it like Venice or Telluride clearly had a lot of the big hitters that we'll be talking about throughout the season. But it doesn't mean that there's still not some interesting, even some titles that are still looking to be bought and that could potentially be released later this year. We'll talk about a couple of those, or just films that are getting their second run to get a different audience perspective, like Netflix films like Rusted and Naiad carried over from Telluride all the way over here, as well as Anatomy of a Fall and The Zone of Interest and a couple of other films as well. But Kevin, I'm curious because you've been there the whole time and you're still there. You're stuck there. We understand that you'll never be coming back to the United States. So from your perspective,
doesn't feel like international travel.
It doesn't. It's actually very easy.
Doesn't.
Honestly, it was very easy to get back into the country. Honestly, when I was traveling, it was very simple. But would you recommend everybody go? That hasn't ever gone to TIFF before to go for the full length of the festival. Some people only go about like a week. I'm kind of curious for your perspective why you choose to go the full time of the festival rather than like some people that leave after like the first 5 or 6 days, or as for myself, I left after a week.
Yeah, I think it depends on what you're trying to get out of the festival. Without a doubt, the second half of the festival, the energy really, really dies down. Like half of the people are totally gone. Yeah. There's like pros and cons to that depending on what you value the most. Definitely you won't be able to see the people and like get to hang out afterwards, but the benefits of it are the PNI screenings, for example. Now you only need to show up maybe 20 minutes before it starts, and that's kind of amazing. And then there's the not just the back half, but like the last 3 days of the festival, there aren't that many PNI screenings anymore. So they're all just regular public screenings. And what I tend to do is because our schedule changes all the time. Sometimes they change immediately on the day of, you never know. And so what I tend to do is when I suddenly have a schedule change, I would change one of the 10 vouchers that I have. And I tend to keep at least one available. And so when you get to the last 3 days, where there's a lot less people and a lot less of a hassle, then you get to decide on, some of the films that you didn't get time to see, or, during the back half, you start hearing about people's tweets on like, hey, this movie is actually really good. You should go see it. And okay, well, I have a voucher now, and now there's a time slot, and I know what to do for the back half. And then in general too, when you have more time, you have time to write. So, like it's a little more dead than the first half, but like, it still works honestly, and you can still be busy.
Yeah. Yeah. And so running off of that, Dan, I'm curious because you've been here for 5 years, gone to TIFF. Obviously it's one of the festivals that you go to more often than none. I'm curious about how, for someone that's never been to it as well, how does it compare to other festivals in terms of like locations of screenings, as terms to the ticketing system, because it's a fascinating ticket system like Kevin's talking about here, the vouchers and everything. Very frustrating, at least for me and Erik, as we were trying to do our tickets during Telluride. But overall, the TIFF experience, would you say, beyond just the films, but the atmosphere and everything too, and going to Toronto, would you say it's worth it for somebody that is a film fan or a member of the press that's never done it before, Dan?
Oh, absolutely. It is the largest public film festival in the world, and the audiences there are incredible. Then the variety of things that they have, I mean, to have something as like, straight down the middle audience crowd pleaser as like Next Goal Wins or Dumb Money, but also having like, you know, the Cannes winners, which they had every movie that won a prize at Cannes was there. And you also have things that are, you know, like Orlando, My Political Documentary, which is so esoteric, and you know, the new film from Tarsem, which is completely different from anything that he's done before in his career, and from like new filmmakers from all corners of the globe. You know, it's really an incredible festival with an incredibly wide variety of things. And honestly, I was saying to people this year that like, if you were coming to TIFF for like the big star-studded premieres, this lineup was probably really disappointing because there weren't as many of those, and the ones that they did have, the movies like weren't that great. But if you go, like, if you really dig into the lineup, I saw less movies that I outright thought were like bad this year than I have in any other year of the festival, because I dug down into the festival and came up with some real hidden gems throughout that I really enjoyed. And that's one of the fantastic things about it. That lineup is so deep. There are so many movies that are playing that you can find whatever you're looking for. It's overwhelming, especially going in as press, and especially with the ticketing system. But if you can believe it, it used to be worse. And yeah, I love it. I really do. And you know, everything is in a really compact amount of locations. You don't have to traipse all over the city and get cars in between everything. It's all pretty much right there within a 10-minute walk from each other at most. And it's great. It's a great atmosphere, especially the first half of the festival.
Yeah, I think when, like, you know, for our audience, for something to see like the main premieres at Telluride, you have like a 25 to 30-minute walk, depending on your pace, across a town to get there. It just depends on your pace. Eric's giving me that look. It just, for older
Not
people.
if you're homosexual.
Okay, there you go.
That's a 15-minute walk max.
Yeah.
Depending also how sleep deprived and caffeine deprived, I think you're also too. But anyway, but for the most part, everything is pretty close to one another. You know, I think you could literally see them if you're looking on King Street. You can see every single theater that you're going to be at, and I think that's great. It's actually, it reminds me a little bit of the accessibility of Telluride, but I think they're a lot more closer. But it also reminds me of the bigness of something like a South by Southwest, where these grand big theaters are being used for these giant films, and so it's a little bit of blending of both, I believe. But the great thing about the TIFF audiences, as you were talking about, Dan, is that before every screening, regular screening at least, there is a reminder about the TIFF Audience Awards, the People's Choice Awards. And we were given those three, the bronze, silver, and gold, I guess you could say, medals this morning. And those are usually a very good tracker as to, from this festival, what could end up being big players into the Oscar race. And so I think it's only fair to start with those three films, and to start off with the 2023 People's Choice winner from the Toronto International Film Festival, which is Cord Jefferson's American Fiction, starring Jeffrey Wright. I reviewed the film for the website. I think that it's a very good film. It is a very, very interesting satire, one that I think will divide audiences, which is kind of interesting that the TIFF audience ate it up. It's kind of ironic how much that they ate this thing up. And because I remember Eric and I were.
Is it ironic, or is it really obvious?
It's really, it's almost on the
I don't
nose.
think it's not.
It's almost
exactly,
not irony at all.
Yeah,
it's not irony at all, actually.
But I remember Eric and I were walking out, and there were a ton of critics that were very divided as we were walking out of the premiere of the film. So obviously it did connect with the more and more screens it had. Eric, I'm curious what your thoughts overall on American Fiction were.
I laughed a lot because I am the target audience for this movie. It's not really so much about Black art as much as it is how white people view it and judge it and tell everybody else that it has value and gravitas, and throughout the film, the story where Jeffrey Wright plays a very intellectual author who's not in a place of success, but others around him that he feels are patronizing to the Black experience are doing very well. So we see just tons of white executives that are trying to get from him a Blacker version of himself, of stories, of things that they can market and publish.
Blacker in their eyes, but
yeah,
very, very artificial.
Yes,
and Black trauma porn.
Yeah, and it is a satire, so they are drawn with the widest, broadest brush possible, and purely as the butt of the jokes. So the audience I was with, white people around me, laughing their asses off at every moment that was that, and it's funny, and you kind of get that sense of who this movie is for, because as you mentioned, we went to the lobby immediately after and talked to some Black critics who felt like literally and said, this movie isn't for me, so I don't know what I'm supposed to get from it. And that was not the case for everybody. That is not a broad brush. Robert Daniels really liked it. It was not,
it was mixed. It was mixed.
Either or.
Yeah.
But it is not a surprise as a TIFF winner. It makes a whole lot of sense.
Yeah, because it's shocking and funny.
It did hit a lot of places, and there's a lot of great stuff about it. Jeffrey Wright's wonderful. Erik Alexander is fantastic. Sterling K. Brown is shirtless through half of it, which is a wonderful thing.
Win-win for everybody.
It absolutely is.
Just gorgeous.
Leslie Uggams is great, and it's
Leslie Uggams.
It's good. It does actually work as a satire, even if every bit of it is absolutely the lowest hanging fruit.
Well, I think, sorry, Dan, go ahead.
No, I was going to say it's probably the best screenplay of anything I saw at TIFF. There's with one exception, but it is just, it's savage, absolutely savage in its satire. And sitting here as, the white man, this is absolutely about me and people like me. And you know what? We fucking deserve it. Okay. And it's hilarious. It's hilarious. And alongside that, it is giving the kind of story that it wishes more people would be telling about Black people. That is also a really, in the end, a really moving story about family in some ways. And it's really good. It's really funny to me that it ended up winning the audience award because of what it's about and how it's about it. It almost feels like a dare to audiences to not vote for it for these kind of things. But it's so enjoyable. It's so much fun to watch.
It's
not the case with a lot of satire.
No, and I think also too, between Jefferson's I think it's a really sharp script. Even though the material that he is using is dated material. Erasure is a book that's 20 years old and was kind of speaking to books like Precious and the lowest common denominator, and then those would get all the acclaim from literary circles throughout the country. I think he was able to add some really interesting spins to it, and the humor is very sharp throughout. But I think the obvious takeaway from the movie is Jeffrey Wright is extraordinary in this film. He's this kind of excellent vehicle because he's having to do both the straight man and then the over the top comedy when he has to get into this deal that he's kind of cornered himself into, and those conversations with his agent on the phone of him sort of making up this persona about this book that he's made. And I think that there's also a really good scene with him and Issa Rae kind of talking about both of their places and their work and how that work is looked upon by literally the three other people on this literary committee to award the book of the year. And they're all, I think the line of the film really is 3 versus 2. And the 2 voices that say, don't give this book the national award of the year is the two black writers, and the three writers that are like, yes, we should highly reward this. This is important text, are the 3 white authors that are from across the different perspectives. But I think that there's, it's funny enough. I wrote about it in the review that like, it feels like something that like would star Paul Giamatti, and Alexander Payne would probably be attached to it if and Erik gave me the idea of saying that. We were talking about that, is that it would totally be like that. But it's nice to see that
everything at the beach house is so
like Nancy Myers.
Jeffrey Wright could have been Paul Giamatti. It's so wild.
Yeah. Or it would have been like a Coen Brothers movie with Turturro in that part or something.
Yeah, it's something where it's like it's misery comedy, right? Where it would just, where like everything's going wrong, but then there are also these tropes of like the local cop falling in love with their housekeeper and stuff like that. It's silly, but and then of course Sterling K. Brown's whole subplot is very very melodramatic, but I think it's able to tap the line very well between going over the top and working. And so I'm not surprised that it really did work for audiences. I mean, obviously the second runner up was The Holdovers, Alexander Payne's film.
Kevin, did you see the movie?
I don't think Kevin saw the film. Did you see it?
No, I have not. I missed it.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Yeah. I just didn't want you to get skipped.
I know what I'm doing.
I was going to ask. You know what you're doing.
I know what I'm doing, but I can tell you this: I know that Kevin saw The Holdovers, which is a film that premiered over at the Telluride Film Festival and carried over.
I missed it both times.
and Erik's just firm stance of like, I am not going to see this movie at all.
That's not what it was. It was on my schedule for both, and then I just kept
Focus
skipping
features. I don't know.
Now I can see it next month at Mill Valley, and I'm good.
So, Kevin, I'm curious what you think of The Holdovers in its second place.
I loved it. I loved it so much, and I wouldn't call myself a big fan of Alexander Payne. Like, I like most of his movies. I'm just not crazy about them. So The Holdovers was a film that it was on my radar. I was aware of it. But I didn't seek it out, and I didn't want to constantly look it up so I actually went into the film completely blind, not knowing what the premise was. And I think that worked beautifully, because once I figured it out, like what the movie was actually about within the first 5 minutes, I was completely sold. It's one of those really beautiful, hilarious, sensitive stories about lonely, broken people, and how they sort of find ways to hurt one another, but then also heal one another. And I think it's a really, really beautiful screenplay, and Paul Giamatti is so good in it. But I also want to give a shout out to Davine Joy Randolph, who gave one of my favorite supporting performances of the year. And that kid, Dominic Sessa, I think is his name. He's also fantastic in it. I think this is a real gem. And I'm really, really happy for Alexander Payne, honestly. I guess it's one of those never too late to be a fan of a filmmaker. The Holdovers is officially like, now I am a big fan of him. And so I would call this one of the biggest surprises at the fest.
Yeah, I loved it, and I reviewed it at a Telluride, and it was really surprising how, like I said on the other show, very emotional and almost mature it was with all three of those characters, and kind of surprising because you see the trailer in it, and it almost gives everything away, but yet there's actually a lot more there than what we see, and so obviously so, but I really enjoyed all three of those performances as well too, and a screenplay that I think is one of the best of this fest and the last fest. But Dan, you caught up with it, right, as well?
I did. I think it's easily Alexander Payne's best film in over a decade.
Oh yeah.
I still miss like the Citizen Ruth and Election and even Sideways a little bit. They had this bite to them that his films have not had since, and I miss that, especially in this one, because to me, this movie felt like it was really setting itself up for this like big emotional sucker punch of an ending, and for me it didn't quite get there. It never quite kicked into the next gear that I was expecting it to go into. And part of me is like, okay, given Payne's recent track record, maybe that's for the best. He doesn't do so well with straight sentiment. But on the other hand, without that and without the bite of his previous work, it was kind of locked in this like nice movie kind of vein all the way through. And it does what it does really, really well, and it's very, very funny. I love the melancholic kind of tone of it. I thought Divine Joy Randolph is perfect,
Mm-hmm.
and she's a perfect foil to Giamatti, and I think who I think is really, really good in it. Sustains the tone really, really well, but it just, for me, it never quite like. It's really, really good all the way through. It never quite kicked up to that next level of being great.
I also, again, want to highlight Dominic Sessa, who I think is just as good
so good
as both of them, and really carries his own in a lot of scenes with Giamatti.
And they just like found this kid at some local high school. It's
it could have gone terribly, because that happens all the time. The son,
he's good.
You know what I mean? So, but it worked out, and he's fantastic in that film. It's nice to see that Payne sort of stripped everything back after downsizing and kind of went back to basics, with a high school sort of setting like Election, and back with Giamatti and Sideways, and kind of makes it simple. But yet, I think the emotions are really profound for those characters, and it's little subtle things. Like I mentioned last week, like Divine Joy Randolph has a couple of scenes by herself that I think are absolutely heartbreaking and truly great. And then the payoff at the end with Giamatti, I think he's someone we'll be talking about, I think, throughout the season for sure. But a movie that we've all seen, which was the opening night film of the Toronto International Film Festival.
No, we haven't all seen it.
We haven't all seen it. Dan, you didn't see it?
No, I'm going to see it.
Oh God, this is the thing, folks, is that Dan is refusing to see certain films. So he didn't see Anatomy of a Fall, he didn't see The Zone of Interest, and he didn't see The Boy and the Heron, because he's like, oh, New York, I'd rather see it with that audience.
See them at New York.
I'd rather see it with those people.
No, I'd rather see a movie that I won't be able to see at the next festival in my hometown.
So he saw probably some really bad foreign language film that he'll never see, as opposed to the third runner-up or the second runner-up.
I saw How to Have Sex, which is neither foreign language nor bad. So
that's true. I've heard very good things about that film. But there's also like 7 other times you could have seen The Boy and the Heron. It was really
it was programmed a lot.
Yeah, it was programmed a lot. It was even programmed in IMAX, so much so that Kevin saw it twice. And I was very jealous of him to see it twice. No regrets at all. Hayao Miyazaki returning after almost a 10-year absence from The Wind Rises. May or may not be his last film, depending on which person you believe out there on the internet. But It's I think a really beautiful sort of culmination of a lot of things within his career, but obviously I think it's his most deeply personal film. It's almost a memory box film for his family, more than he's making it. That he's made a ton of movies for audiences, but I think he's personally making this one for himself. And he's previously stated it's making it for his grandchildren to have something to remember him by. And with that context going into it, I think it's visually an extraordinary film. And I don't think it's of the upper tier echelon of the great movies, the masterpieces that Hayao Miyazaki has given us. But I think this is a much better ending to an illustrious career than The Wind Rises, a movie that I do not like, actually. I think it's the one film in his filmography that I'm just not a big fan of. And it got me emotionally throughout the film. It got me in the opening title cards when you see Studio Ghibli just right up there on the big screen. You're like, oh my God, this is great. I know that a lot of audiences really just, I mean, there was a pop-up shop of Miyazaki memorabilia around. It was the big film of the festival. You kind of had to see it there. If you went and saw it at another festival, then you made the wrong choice, Dan. But Erik, you saw it at the 8 p.m. screening. I saw it at the 6 o'clock screening on the opening night film. So
yeah, most people went to the 6, to the first, and I opted for the 8.
It's so that he could go do a bunch more drugs and drink a bunch more free cocktails at the Rotten Tomato party. It was
I was there till the bitter end of that, and I have no regrets, because that was a fantastic.
It was
moment.
A really good.
And honestly, when we can talk a little bit about the festival again, make some distinctions about, we are all press. We went there as press. What that experience is like versus a civilian going and having to spend a lot of money per screening, and how to make those choices. But also too, what that Rotten Tomatoes mixer is like, what it was like for the amount of new people that and very young people.
Well, we can talk about it. We can talk about it real quick, because you were on the panel for that. With a bunch of our friends and former writers on the staff.
It was Esther Zuckerman, KB Valerie Complex, and moderated by Jacqueline Coley. It was fantastic. And the audience was entirely made up of the inclusion initiative that they started in 2018, which is fantastic. You were a beneficiary of that this year. I was the first year, and it is about getting people of color, LGBTQ, anything outside of the traditional construct of film criticism, the opportunity to go to the festival, have a small stipend to help them get there or stay there, because no festival experience is without an enormous amount of expense. And it's one of the things that makes it exclusive to certain people. It just is, that's just a fact. So the majority of the folks this round were really, really young, and they were really eager. And it was great to see, because the nature of film criticism and of media literacy and just of media companies and how they regard writing and film writing is very much at a scary place right now. So it was really inspiring to see a lot of these very young people that have not had their dreams crushed yet. So it was really kind of about trying to help maintain that for them, and not step on it and be like, well, it's going to be a tough road, kid. And more like, surround yourself with people you trust, and try and find, people that will build you up instead of hold you down, and that kind of stuff. And it was wonderful.
And they had some mentor sessions early in the morning on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. Some of those panelists were very helpful to a lot of those journalists, and then there were some that were not so helpful to a lot of those journalists, as it kind of goes, just with the various ages and experiences within within the industry, and you kind of just have to take all the information that you have and then use it. I was talking to a lot of journalists that were Canadian journalists, and just how they struggled to get screenings, and how a lot of international critics struggled to be able to see things. And so it makes you kind of reflect on how, even though we have a tough go at it a lot of the time, we're very blessed to be able to do all this, but then also too, there's a lot of different ways you can talk to those critics as well and be able to help them out. And so it's always good to connect with just also different people than just our regular group here, even though we all got to see each other tons of times, sat with each other during screenings, movies that we'll talk about. We did, Kevin. We sat with each other during screenings.
Barely. Barely.
Well,
Kevin's just like, I didn't care for it.
Well, Dan and I and Erik.
Yeah, I feel like we did more last year. Certainly, Kevin and I did more last year than this year.
Absolutely.
I think that was the purpose. I think we just said, you know what, Erik, and he was like, you know what, Ryan, let's just not sit with anybody else. This is the cool table. And no, I'm just kidding. No, it just did. Sometimes the schedule lines up, sometimes it doesn't. But it's and that's what's great about this, is the schedule is very fluid, because a movie that you're about to see could get panned finest kind, or Knox Goes Away, or Pool Man, and you're like, oh, I thought I was going to go see those movies, and then you're like, oh,
you're the one, Dan.
You're the
I'm
one, Dan.
I
You're
was the only one.
You're the only fucker that.
And I know it
movie.
because I was the only one laughing in the theater. It was very awkward.
I guarantee you, we could all, if we were in there, we were like, oh, that's Dan having a good time. Anyway, this noose, does it work for 3? But.
No.
But yeah, so your schedule changes and evolves, especially with the P&Is and stuff. But back to the original point.
Back to The Boy and the Heron.
It's like Eric's avoiding talking
what
about
we were
this.
talking about.
The Boy and the Heron.
Just say you don't.
No,
like
I
it.
just wanted
Just say
to
you
make
don't
sure
like
that
it.
like I said, I liked it more than I loved it. I have not changed my mind on that. I will watch it again.
This is Oppenheimer.
I
all
just
over
think
again.
it's lesser Miyazaki, and it's pretty. You won't even disagree with me on that.
No, it's about mid tier.
You loved it.
I loved it. Well,
It's pretty low tier for me.
Yeah, I mean, there's some.
It has some great sequences.
Yeah.
The fire sequences, I think, are absolutely stunning, and they are really tension filled. And I thought they were gorgeously drawn. A lot of the rest didn't feel that inspired. I think the time space continuum stuff was really
just kick an old man while he's old.
It didn't feel like him. It felt I don't know. It felt artificial. It felt inserted. It didn't feel that's
The fuck?
That's fine. It's okay. I can be Dan and Pool Man here and say that I am out on a limb. That's all right.
G Kids, no promotion stuff for the season to Erik Anderson.
But I think the voice work is fantastic. I loved the voice work.
Yeah.
Yeah, I liked it. It's fine.
It's almost like you got a gun off camera pointing to you, be like, I
feel like it. And the Miyazaki pop-up store at TIFF sucked. So
I was able to get one thing that was very.
It was awful.
You could just say it's fine. You know what I mean? You don't.
It wasn't fine. It was bad.
It was just a lot of Totoro and not much of anything else.
You just really want to.
You know what? There was none of The Boy and the Heron.
I think that's
missed opportunity. Missed opportunity there. Missed opportunity to serve champagne at the premiere of Widow Clicquot. Lots of missed opportunities this TIFF.
Lots.
Well, they're probably cutting the budget. You know what I mean? Make sure.
Nobody handed me any Bulgari jewels every time I walked into the Princess of Wales. And
which rude.
Bullshit.
Rude.
Yeah. Also, the clapping was a little off. Can we?
Okay.
I mean, we got to talk about it. There
is a slight pause in that commercial that threw everyone off, and throughout the whole festival,
you could tell that it was a crowd of. You could tell it was a crowd of white people because the rhythm was very off. you know, at a lot of the screenings. I just, you know, it was like,
well, I mean, it was a different cut of the commercial. The music was muted.
They turned down that bass,
barely even like anything compared to last
much
year.
Worse than last year.
Yeah,
so much worse than
last year.
I don't know what they did to it, but
it was an event every single time that commercial came on. Every single time.
Also, I got to say this now, being my first TIFF, the piracy joke.
Like, no, that's always funny.
It's always funny.
Grow up, dad jokes. It's terrible.
It's always funny. Bad. People always laugh.
It's stupid.
It's really funny.
It's really bad when like you're about to watch Zone of Interest and you hear a bunch of people act like a pirate. You know what I mean?
But you know, and it's great at the premiere of The Holdovers, where after that they show the fake 70s. This film is rated R thing, and everyone does it all over again.
But that's the thing. There are certain rituals, just like the volunteer commercial. You know, for the love of film, it's.
Eric, you did a great job.
Yes. I was great in that. Thank you so much. But that also gets just huge applause. People love it. It's goofy and it's dumb. So are the TIFF audience commercials where, you know, where the people that are in the movies break, you know, the fourth wall because they're talking to us.
The bathroom one was the bathroom one was funny.
That one was
great.
Good.
But then I was also thinking about it every time. I'm like, that guy just like walked right into that bathroom and didn't even.
He asked first.
Yeah, but like,
yes,
I wouldn't want to go in there.
It also plays on, you know, the trope of women crying at movies, and I'm like, have you ever seen me at a fucking movie? Because
I have.
I'm in that bathroom. So,
I've seen you after Sun. It was a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. By the way, once again, to that volunteers commercial, you were really toned. I got to know your secret afterward.
Thanks.
Yeah. So anyway, Kevin, you saw the
blue-shirted bunch.
You saw The Boy and the Heron twice, Kevin. I guess that means you liked it, right?
Yes. The Boy and the Heron. I love the film very, very much. And I knew immediately after finishing it that I gotta see this again. Because I think, as someone who loves it, I think it's fair to say it is arguably Miyazaki's least accessible film.
Oh yeah.
I think more than half of the visuals in the film, they're really fascinating and riveting, but I still haven't figured out what they mean. But I think I mean that in the good way though, like because as much as I don't quite understand what some of those visuals mean, I know how they made me feel. Yeah. And so I think it may be a little bizarre on a plot level, on a story level, maybe even on a structure level. What I do know is that it feels like a very cozy, safe space that Miyazaki has created. And it reminds me of his other really imaginative, cozy space films like Howl's Moving Castle and Spirited Away. There's even certain tangents in this one that really remind me of Spirited Away. There's a particular moment involving a fish being gutted, and it reminded me of that moment in Spirited Away where they had to pull a lot of trash out of that one river spirit.
Yeah, and it just pulls it out. Yeah, and everything.
Yeah, and it just brought a huge grin on my face. And there's so many creature designs in this one that I felt like not only do they make sense consistently in Miyazaki's filmography, they felt instantly iconic to me. You know, I'll never look at a parakeet the same way ever again.
Yeah,
to this movie,
because now it's going to have knives behind its back.
And the thing is, not just any knives; they're kitchen knives. It's like it's so ridiculous. And then that heron character, I love him so much. You know, he's like there's something about that heron character that feels like he's like a troll, but also he's like a incompetent tour guide of a character. I think it's really fascinating to try to figure him out. And in a way, I'm glad the script doesn't really explain away everything, and so he's still sort of an enigma, but in a way that like I want to befriend him. And so I think of all the new characters, the Heron feels so classic, so instantly classic to me. The second time I saw the film, it was in an IMAX showing. And I think the IMAX presentation, not only did it really enhance the visuals, it really enhanced Joe Hisashi's score. And unlike some of his other films where I feel very moved as I'm watching it, I think The Boy and the Heron is a film that moves you when it's over, when you're thinking back to it. It's one of those films where as the end credits are rolling and the song plays, you sort of start feeling the culmination of all the visuals and emotional ideas that Miyazaki's exploring, and it still works. If I were to rank this, maybe it's still in the bottom half of his filmography, but there's sort of like an asterisk to me ranking it in the bottom half, because I feel like maybe the films I put in his top half I have like a nostalgic sense to them. Maybe I saw them at a younger age, and
some of those films we have like
know.
20 years with. You know what I mean?
Right, exactly. So it's really hard for me
to put them there.
It's hard for me to immediately like watch The Boy and the Heron and then an hour later decide on where I want to put it in this man's, whole career. And so it's a film that I love right now, and like I can't wait to see it again at the New York Film Festival. I can't wait to buy it and show it to my family. I just know that I haven't figured it out completely, but that makes me want to, see it again and see how it fares over time as I get older.
Yeah. No, I agree. I agree wholeheartedly with Kevin. It just kind of lingers with you throughout the festival. And then when you're watching some really bad movies, you're like, what's good? The Boy and the Heron. But
I do love that score. And even if
you can't say anything nice about
the
it.
Film, you shut up. Even if the film might be less
multitudes, Ryan.
accessible, I think the score might be like the most accessible of any of his films. It sounded just very traditional, very Oscar friendly, very warm. It was my favorite part of the film. I love that score. Yeah.
And when you mean contained multitudes, Dan, he also played the Heron in the film too, Erik. It was a really great performance.
I thought he was the boy of The Boy and the Heron.
No, see, they're not doing a Benjamin Button thing where you age backwards or something like that. So, yeah, real spoiler alert for that, everyone. But those were the audience People's Choice Award winners, but there were a lot of other films to talk about. We're going to talk about some of them right now. The other big premiere of the festival was the long delayed Taika Waititi's follow. It's not even the follow to Jojo Rabbit anymore. It's the follow up to
it was supposed to be.
It was supposed to be, yeah. Next to Go Win, starring Michael Fassbender. I think, did everybody see this? No, Dan, you didn't see this. No, and Kevin, you didn't see this. Okay, so just me and Erik here. But Erik, why don't you go on and talk about your favorite film of the festival?
Oh my God. It's bad.
It's bad.
And it's one that's gone even further down, because I was trying to...
You're trying to be nice.
I wasn't trying to be nice. I just was trying not to be absolutely savage and cruel. So I think I said, like, it's not terrible, but it's definitely not good. But it's terrible. It's pretty terrible.
It's forgettable. It's forgettable.
You can see the seams of the troubled production throughout almost every frame of this. All of it. It is bizarre. Yet not surprising, because it's 5 years almost now since it was shot and then had to be reshot to get Armie Hammer out of it. And Will Arnett plays his character now, who has almost nothing to do. Elizabeth Moss, almost nothing to do. Because all of that was just butchered and carved to get Armie Hammer out of the picture. And it just feels like it. It feels like it at every moment. That one goddamn image that we had from the movie is not in the movie. I kept waiting
hilarious.
for it. I kept waiting for the to have the Leonardo DiCaprio
we
moment,
did that all festival long.
Yeah, we did that all festival long. And it never happened. It never came.
Never happened.
They would reuse like moments in one section of the film in another section that were supposed to be two very different times. It was bad. It was really bad. And Fassbender's blonde beard, get that out of here. I don't ever want to see that again. I thought he was really mediocre.
I won't go that far.
I thought he was very mediocre.
I think he was trying to do the best he could with subpar material, and
you know what? That's not an excuse for me. You signed on.
It's not his fault that he's not writing the script.
No,
he didn't have control of the edit.
It's very difficult for an actor to elevate a bad script. Yes, but I do think his performance outside the script is just not good.
I think it's on cruise control, but I wouldn't say it's like terrible. I'm sure he's going to give a better performance in The Killer.
It even felt low level for Waititi, who is not
he loves
the
those
most
low-hanging fruit.
Yeah, and he's not the most nuanced writer either, and
not the most nuanced person.
None of this, especially his own appearance in it, which is god awful.
Yeah,
especially introducing the movie. It's an interesting story. It's an interesting idea. There's a cool runnings, kind of fun underdog concept to it. But it never, I don't think it ever even stood a chance, honestly. And not just from a viewer point of view that I wasn't going to give it a chance. I want everything to be good. Yeah. I just don't think it stood a chance. There was no way to cobble this thing together that was going to be cohesive and interesting. It is just an absolute run-of-the-mill, lowest common denominator, wannabe feel-good underdog story. It's just...
Yeah, I was actually kind of surprised it didn't get a People's Choice winner.
Oh yeah, me too.
Because it feels like the kind of bullshit catnip that the whole award system would probably give. To be fair,
I'm glad.
I'm glad it didn't.
I'm glad they saw through it, because they didn't with Jojo Rabbit. So, yeah. But they did here. So
I maintain that Jojo Rabbit is good. At the very least, it's, from what I hear, it's better than this. But like,
it's miles better.
It's miles better than this.
From what I heard, like even the premiere audience, which are usually pretty friendly, they were kind of like, I was at the premiere.
I was at the premiere that night, and there was a lot of applauding at obviously the points where you want to applaud for the big moments and whatnot. But there was a mixed reaction in terms of when the credits rolled. There were some people in the press that gave it a weird reaction because they applauded, but then they also went online and and blew it up, which was interesting to see. I wonder who that could have been. But then it was a smattering. It wasn't a full on like.
It wasn't what you would expect.
No, it wasn't what you. It wasn't like The Boy and the Heron, which had a very good little ovation at the end of it. And I can tell you this: whatever they reported about like the applause for Next Goal Wins, if they did report it, was not factual. Like that those claps were gone at like 10 seconds into this song. The film overall, it's a product of a delayed and terrible edit. And
there's 4 editors on this movie.
That's like having 4 writers on a screenplay. You can't,
none of them actually worked together.
Yeah, none of them did it either. Yeah, exactly. None of them actually saw each other and had a lunch.
It's just unfortunate.
It's unfortunate because
I don't want something to be bad. It just
no, you don't want to go spend 2 hours of your life and it end up being bad. But
I would have hated to have been a TIFF audience member
Who
who
paid
had to spend like $50 for it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
instead
then
of all the way
hated
up
it.
there.
Well, more
you
since
know?
it was a premium.
Yeah, so it
Yeah.
probably would have been like $80 to 100 or something like
Yeah.
that. But
There were some very expensive ticket prices if you
Yeah.
were not press.
speaks a lot about the state of the festival and things to come down the road. But I think that the humor of the film is off a lot. I think that the trans representation in the film, the way that they handle it, it's at times it's congratulatory, at other times it feels kind of off. Like it's like, especially at the beginning of the film and how they introduce the two characters, and it's really Fassbender in the actress's name, Eric, that
Kaimana.
yes,
Kaimana.
who I think she works good alongside Fassbender. I wish that
I agree.
I wish that they didn't recycle the same problems that she had throughout the film over and over again. And I felt that her moment of her emotional moment in the film didn't feel almost like a cheat. It just didn't feel authentic. I think that the movie is kind of anticlimactic. Looks like a Disney Channel movie.
Yeah.
It doesn't look like somebody that had directed a film that had been nominated for Best Picture before. Looked like, if you ever saw when I was growing up on Disney Channel, they had like, Brick, or they had like the basketball movie about the two. They basically had like sports movies on there that looked terrible. And it was, all sappy and sentimental. Yeah, Air Bud. It kind of had the aesthetic of that. And
hey, we're not talking shit about Air Bud. That's an amazing
no, that's
series.
a good movie.
How dare you?
When they go to space, oh my god, cinematically better than this movie. But I don't know. The Will Arnett, Elizabeth Moss of it all, the stuff with the daughter is dumb. But I'm sure Caitlin Dever will get an award from a certain critics group this year. It's there would be, it's a movie that's going to end up on like in the theaters or Disney Plus, and it'll drop, and then we'll all forget about it. And
it's Searchlight, so it'll be on Hulu
on Hulu,
that.
Like that. Yeah, just drop it and let us forget about it. It was, an hour and 40 minutes of wasting.
We spent a lot of time on that movie.
Exactly, but we're going over to
and a lot of time talking about it.
Yeah, Dumb Money.
Mm-hmm.
It's the last time anyone's going to talk about it on this show. I'm not going to talk about it anymore. Dumb Money, the new Craig Gillespie film, premiered at TIFF. I know that I saw it. Kevin saw it. Kevin, did you? I actually kind of liked it, and I was surprised because the trailers sucked, and I usually don't watch the trailer, but I watched it a couple months ago or whatever, and I just thought, oh god, this looks awful. And I'm usually not on Craig Gillespie's wavelength a lot, but I ended up really liking this a lot. What about yourself?
Yeah, I liked it. I liked it enough as well. I think it could have used a couple places where it could have explained some stock market terms a little bit to people who don't quite know what they mean. And when I say people, I mean me. But
you don't know the stock market?
Oh, no.
Okay.
So I had to Google a lot of terms afterwards. Like, what is that? Oh, it's that. Okay, got it. Anyway, overall, though, I think the film does a pretty good job at informing the audience about this high-level view of what went down with the whole GameStop fiasco. And I think it has enough tension and stakes going on when it starts really becoming about the billionaires versus the little guy. There are certain things about the movie that I don't think it quite worked well for me, but I can't think of a way to improve it either. One of those things is this cast is pretty huge.
Yeah.
It's a pretty large ensemble cast, but they never get to interact with one another. But you can't really change that either, because the film does take the story takes place like during the pandemic, so everyone is like spread all across the country. They're like doing their own thing, and so you never have a chance where Paul Dano and Anthony Ramos share the shot together, and so it's like it feels like a missed opportunity, but there's nothing you can do about it because of the situation of the story. But I think I would still recommend it because I think tonally, I think it nails this really delicate balance between like just how fucked and how rigged the system is, plus how absurd this whole event was and how it went down. It's like, can you believe that this thing happened? And for a movie whose true story only happened like a couple years ago, this to me does not feel like a too soon type of movie. Because I think a lot of true story movies, good number of them have the too soon kind of feeling to it. This does not have that. And the last thing that I want to give for it is I'm glad that it can be both informative and not condescending at the same time, which, you know, certain filmmaker out there,
Adam McKay. Yeah, just say it. Just we
really guilty about.
No, I agree, because it's like I was telling you, Eric, and I think I put it in the review for it. I was like, this feels like The Big Short, but you actually give a shit about these people because they're not all, because at the end of The Big Short, all those people that made all that money, they're still working in hedge funds. They're still, going to make a ton of money. These are actually like genuine, American Forever she plays a nurse, and Anthony Ramos works at a GameStop and lives with his parents, and Dano is just had a baby, and him and Shailene Woodley live in a really small place out in Massachusetts. So, and then I think what's even fascinating is looking at the two girls in college that are at the University of Texas, but they both have $150,000 in debt. And so these are all very desperate moves, but it's desperate moves of just like, well, we have nothing to lose here other than, getting into more debt because the system has fucked us up even more than it already has. And so I think that there's a good sense of urgency there. I think that Vincent D'Onofrio and Nick Offerman and Seth Rogen played these great sort of mustache twirling villains. I think Sebastian Stan is great as a giant stupid idiot throughout this film, which I think he should really work more with Gillespie because that's where he gets his best work. And overall, I was surprised too, Kevin, because it is so recent, like you said, that it could feel too soon. It could feel like, there are still events still unfolding with certain, information about it. And it could also just feel like it's like a blip. It doesn't matter. But I thought it was a lot of fun and really funny and kind of stylish, which is kind of different for Gillespie than something like, I even think like I, Tonya. I think it's a little bit better than that. So
Tonya is pretty stylish though.
Yeah.
I don't think it's devoid of a visual aesthetic.
I think it's devoid of being a good movie, but other than that,
it has a visual aesthetic. That much is true.
Yeah. Whether it's good or not is beyond the point.
Yes.
But next film, Monster. Movie that
very rude of you to put this on this list, Ryan.
Oh, why? Because is this another title that you're holding for New York? Man, you're gonna have a lot of time.
No, it's not playing New York. It was my most anticipated of the festival and the one screening that I could never get a ticket to, no matter what time it was. Literally spending all day on my phone trying to get tickets to this one fucking movie.
Well, anyway, we saw it. And
fuck you.
Eric, what did you think of Monster by director Corriera?
I hate you all so much.
I mean, I love Corriera. I think he is one of our best sentimentalists.
Yeah.
Except that his sentimentality is not treacly or sappy. It's just
always
the emotional part.
Yeah. It's always just right.
I absolutely completely love this movie. It's I think it's not necessarily that it's limited to a certain audience, but this is a story of two boys who are in whatever between like elementary and junior high is, where one of them is just kind of more into the other than the other is, at least at first, and how that plays in a school environment and optics and everything. But it's much more than just that. There are just absolutely fantastic dynamics going on with the adults too that are amazing. But yeah, the kids are wonderful. It's beautiful. The construction of the timeline is astounding. The score, maybe my favorite of the year. Yeah, this was feeding me every single thing that a great creative film does. And it has some minor elements to Close from last year, just in terms of the dynamic between two boys that are friends and how that friendship can mean one thing to one and one to the other. I don't want to say that it's anything more than that so that people aren't like, oh my God, you're spoiling it, because it's not.
Good job.
Because it's not at all. But it is a dynamic and a story that I think, can speak to a lot of people. Not necessarily, you don't have to be queer for it to be that. You can always like a kid in school that doesn't like you back in the same way, and you're just like, why? What's wrong with me? That's a pretty common
someone that
feeling.
just someone that wants or needs a friend because they're going through a lot.
But these kids are queer, so this is a queer story.
And with that, Erik snatches the movie and says, "Absolutely no way, straights.
It's ours. I'm sorry.
It's for the gays. You don't get to have it."
So, Kevin, you saw the film. It was like a day or so ago when you saw it?
No.
Was it early in the fest?
I was at the premium.
Oh, okay. All right. And what were your thoughts on it? Because you were able to get that ticket.
I was. That was the first thing I tried to get.
Smart move.
And I held on to it all the way through. I think Monster is a film where I'm so glad that I didn't read a single thing about it. It was one of my most anticipated films of the year, and I went in totally blind, only knowing that it's Koreeda's newest film, and knowing just enough about that it's a change in perspective movie. I think one of the greatest things about it is it's a film that feels like it's constantly evolving. Like as you experience each character's perspective, we naturally try to start filling in the blanks and start like theorizing what we think is going on. And Koreeda does this immaculate job of showing compassion for his characters. And so when certain characters are kept in the dark and have information withheld from them, I think it makes the first half of this film, at least, incredibly suspenseful for me personally. For a moment, I was like, is Koreeda like doing an Asghar Farhadi movie? Like what is going on?
Oh yeah, it's like a Farhadi Rashomon at the beginning. It's incredible.
In the beginning. Yeah. And
only then, he gave somebody else a writing credit. Yeah.
And then inevitably the film eventually starts following the children, and it becomes something completely different.
Yeah.
And it becomes so beautiful, and it really hits home on what I think it's its central core message, that children at that age experience a completely different universe from what adults go through. That adults are at that age where we have to deal with certain things in life on a daily basis, and like we can't imagine what children will be going through. And because the children can't quite comprehend these emotions, these feelings that they're having, there's no way they're going to be communicating what they're thinking and how they're feeling to the adults. And as a result, the adults have no choice but to presume what's going on. It's actually, in a weird way, reminded me of Anatomy of a Fall, which is a movie that's about how adults have no choice but to presume what happened and jump to these conclusions and make these assumptions, however wrong they may be. And I think those ideas work beautifully in cinematic form because the audience gets the privilege of seeing the truth, like seeing like all these perspectives at once. And so I think that's really the strongest element of Monster, that as it goes on, your feelings change for it, things start to become clear. So so since Erik already claimed it, I personally did not know that the film is queer coded. So afterwards I looked the film up, and that's when I realized, wow, reading what award a film won could be a spoiler if you didn't know.
Yeah.
You know? But so there are certain moments in the third chapter where when it finally clicked to me what was actually going on, it felt like experiencing the twist in Arrival. It felt like I sank into my chair, like, oh my God, like that's what this is about, you know. And it's so beautifully devastating. It's heartbreaking, but again, Koreeda never loses that sense of compassion in the film, so you feel like he's holding your hand throughout all the way to the end. I agree with what Erik said about the score. This is Ryuichi Sakamoto's final score, based upon some music that he's made prior to the film. But when they're repurposed into the context of the storyline, I think they're like earth-shattering effect.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think this is a must-see. I think it's completely different from Koreeda's previous film, Broker, but I think it's in a very, very good way. It's just, yeah.
Honestly, what I love about it is his attention to detail is so on point, like it always is. But it feels like this jolt of energy because he's focusing so much on the visuals and behind the camera, allowing someone else to really take the reins of the screenplay. But yet it feels so like a movie that he would make, a movie that I really loved. I thought it was great. I was a bit sleepy when I was watching, so Erik just had to nudge me to keep me up just because it was late. When we were watching it, it has nothing to do with the film. I'm calling myself out. It's fine. But I really did. I did love it, and there were a lot of things about it that were that have lingered, much like his films do. I think he has this. Erik, you talked about it. His emotionality, it lingers with you because you're thinking about, wow. Well, not many directors have a sincerity to their filmmaking anymore and are able to sort of nail it almost with every film. And I really loved Broker last year. I even loved a movie like what was it called? The Truth, his English language film that came out a couple of years ago. And I really, I love a lot of his films. But this might be upper tier. We talked about Miyazaki. This might be upper tier for him for sure. And
it definitely is for me, because even as much as I think he can be very smart with his sentimentality, Shoplifter's Broker, those are movies that really do wear their sentimentality on their sleeve. So it's very easy to like these people because we're already there even pretty much before anything starts. And the style of the storytelling of Monster keeps us at bay just a little bit because we think this teacher is horrible. Why would they do this? And then we see other things from other perspectives and then from their angle. And it just keep, like you said, Kevin, it keeps evolving. So we do as a viewer too. So it isn't spoon-fed really in any way. So every moment is a discovery, and I'm just so blown away by this movie.
Yeah, it's absolutely fantastic. Well, moving on to a movie that was kind of one of the highlights, because one of the things that was recurring a lot throughout the festival were these actor director films. And so you had like Patricia Arquette, Viggo Mortensen, who else? Michael Keaton, Chris Pine for
Tony Goldwyn.
There were a lot of them.
It was like
half the lineup.
Flop City.
Except one, I think that was the highlight for us who saw it. I know, Eric, you didn't get to catch it, but A Woman of the Hour, directed by Anna Kendrick, which was snagged up by Netflix for an $11 million acquisition, was the biggest acquisition of the festival so far. It's a really confident debut for Kendrick in a film that I don't know a lot of if you guys, Dan and Kevin, knew a lot about the story about Rodney Alcala, who was this murderer, who's this serial killer who ends up on the dating game. But I think that Kendrick does a great job at really building the tension and surrounding the story around him and really making this film a true horror film as well as this crime film, and just builds tension perfectly, like I said. So I thought it was the best actor director film of the festival. Dan, what did you think of it?
Totally agree. Far and away the best actor director thing that I saw. Like, I don't even know that there's anything else to say about it. It's just really, really good at doing what it does. And I do think that the stuff on the dating game is just more interesting than everything else, than the scenes that we just see of Alcala and the women that he murders.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that's mostly because I hate to say it, because Anna Kendrick is also in that part of the movie, and she is just a very, very. I find her such a winning screen presence.
Yeah.
She's really inherently watchable, and I forget his name, but the guy who plays Alcala. He's very, very, very good, but he's just basically essentially playing this one note creepy role, and all the other scenes are kind of just that same thing over and over again. And in the scenes on the dating game, it's interesting because we see how this character Cheryl has been treated, outside the show. She's a struggling actress, and how she's been treated in auditions, and then how she's treated at the show, and how she sort of takes power back for herself in this situation. And there's also, that's where the rising tension of the movie is, because we know this guy is bad news. And so that part is so much more inherently interesting than everything else. But that said, there are some shots in this movie that I was like, oh, okay, Miss Kendrick, you really did not come to play. Like, you have some real visual ideas in your head. I was really impressed. I think it's a very smart pickup for Netflix.
Yep.
I don't know if $11 million good, but still, I mean, like, you package some quicko cheapy documentary about this to push with it, and you're good.
Yeah.
You get tons of hours of views, or however it is they're measuring these things.
Kevin, you want to add anything to it? I know you saw it as well.
Hey, Dan, 1 billion people watched 2 minutes of that movie. So
good job. Good job, Erik.
Yeah, I agree with everything that Dan said. I like this movie a lot. It was very disturbing and very upsetting. I had a knot in my stomach pretty much the entire time seeing it. I think the smartest thing that this movie did was to not focus on the killings. Instead, it focused more on the conversations between man and woman before the violence happens. I went into the movie knowing the premise, knowing that this is about a serial killer who, during the height of his crimes, was on national television on a game show. And when I first read about it, my response, like anyone would, was, how did this happen?
Yeah, how the hell they allow it to happen?
How the hell did this happen? And I think that's what the film is mainly about. It's exploring this gender dynamic on how easily it is for women to suddenly fall into that feeling of terror, of being taken advantage of, or how they're being ignored by men who could help them at the moment. And so I think it's a film that really, really shows you this is how women get hurt. This is how women experience trauma. This is how awful, murderous men get away with it. So it's a film about the how. And I think that's what makes it such a smart, uncomfortable, really, really uncomfortable film. And Anna Kendrick can fucking direct. But I think the best part about her, actually, I think, is she's so different in front of the camera versus behind the camera.
Yeah.
I agree with what you said, Ryan, that she's so watchable. She nails that uncomfortable comedy. There's a bit in the film where she changes up the questions that she asks on the show.
Oh, good.
It's so delightful. It's so entertaining. It's like the one moment of levity from the rest of the film.
It's the one level of control that she can have in that moment.
Right.
Yeah. She's got nothing to lose at that point. And it's
exactly. Yeah.
Great.
But then the way she directs behind the camera is so much more precise and cold in a way. And it feels very, very different from the character she plays. And so I really, really have to admire her, like give props on that. Like she's able to really wear these two hats differently and clearly.
There is a moment of sound mixing in this movie that sent chills up my spine when it happened and when I realized what it was doing and where that scene was going to go. And it's so effective, and it's such a simple little thing, but that is the sign of a director who knows exactly what they're doing.
It's very patient.
It's a very good script too.
It's very patient directing, I think. Yeah. And then through that patience, there's a lot of confidence in our actors and everything, just to be able to grab that tone and pull the audience in. And then I wasn't expecting that from her. Like you're mentioning, Dan, I wasn't expecting her to come in and just knock it out of the park on a debut like this. And it kind of makes me curious what she's going to do next. Because it's only like a 90-minute, hour and 40-minute film, but it really moves at such a really confident pace. Two films that I know that Dan and Kevin saw that Erik and I didn't get a chance to see, but I do want to get them to highlight. So I'm gonna let them speak on them real quick. So I know you guys saw Dream Scenario, the new film with Nicolas Cage from A24, correct? Yes. So Kevin, you want to go on ahead and talk about that one real quick?
Yeah, I reviewed Dream Scenario for Erik. It's on the website. You guys should check it out. I loved this movie. It's so bizarre and weird and completely out there. It's almost like a one-note gimmick being stretched out to full length. But Christopher Borgli, if that's the right way to pronounce it, he really carries the film from start to finish with such a confident handling of tone. And Nicolas Cage, holy shit, the man has never been funnier and more heartbreaking at the same time. And it's such a fascinating exploration about fame, whether you want it or not. And I most people online have talked about how Dream Scenario is a film that explores cancel culture. And without a doubt, there is cancel culture in the film. But I think the way it's approached is more about how people in general in society can be really fickle, and how our opinions of someone can change like drastically in the matter of just days. And I think Nicolas Cage explores that very, very beautifully. He got to speak a little bit in a Q&A after the premiere, where he talks about how, fame feels like gambling, where it feels good when you win, but it feels profoundly sad when you lose. And then he talks about how he has to handle that as an actor, as a movie star. And what drew him to want to do this movie is the character he plays in the film doesn't want that attention at all. In fact, the guy he plays is kind of just a pathetic dude, you know? And so he took that and put it into like, what would it be like for this guy who never asked for any of this attention and suddenly got everyone in the world's attention? And so it's funny. It's so funny until it's not funny anymore, and you start feeling bad for the characters. And I think it works beautifully, honestly.
Dan, am I wrong? Did you see it or not see it? No, you didn't see it. Dan's muted.
No. Yeah, no. I had to make a choice between this and a Woman of the Hour, and
Okay.
I chose the other one because at that point, this hadn't Woman of the Hour hadn't sold yet.
That's true. Yeah, that happens.
And I knew that this would be getting released by A24, so I said, okay.
I believe it comes out sometime in November, if I'm not mistaken. But Dan, that means that you can jump off and talk about one of the two films from Coleman Domingo that was at the Toronto International Film Festival, and the one that he can actually talk about, which was Sing Sing, which seemed to be one of the films that was one of the biggest surprises of the festival, including another wonderful performance by Coleman Domingo. I and Erik, it was I could attest that Erik and I were very jealous and regretted that we didn't get to catch this one. But now A24 has picked this film up, so we should see it sometime early next year.
So happy.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm an idiot for missing it. I'm an idiot.
It is.
Wait, say it one more time.
So good.
Say it one more time, Erik.
Going on mute.
It's so good. I was so happy to have seen it with a public audience. Who just absolutely ate it up, as they should have. It is wonderful, subtle, confident storytelling. It's not anything groundbreaking on a filmmaking level, but when you realize that that it's based on this actual program that works with inmates creating theatrical pieces and putting them on and helping them process their experiences through art, and when you realize again that all of the people playing the prisoners in this movie are graduates of that program, it takes, and they're basically playing like versions of themselves. Like it takes everything to a whole another level of storytelling. And then there's so many like subtle filmmaking choices in this that are just executed perfectly. There is, in like the midway to the third of the way through the movie, there is a successive secret, like a 1, 2, 3 emotional gut punch that happens in like 3 scenes in a row, and there are 3 beats and one in every scene, and they immediately follow each other, and each one landed with that audience exactly the way that it was supposed to. And it's so wonderful to watch. I blown away by the cast. It'll probably never happen, but I want them to get a SAG Ensemble nomination. I love them all, and they're so good, and they all they have each one of them has to play the whole scale of notes that an actor can play, and it's just so wonderful and heartwarming in a way that I was not expecting. There is a montage near the end that got me choked up as much as anything during this festival. I really, really loved it, and it's a true testament to the power of the arts and how important they are to us as humans, and the connection that it can foster with other people, and how you can process things through art. It plays so well, and I'm convinced I'm convinced that the only reason that it didn't place for the People's Choice Award is because there were not as many screenings for it as there were for Holdovers and The Boy and the Heron.
Yeah. I mean, there was like 900 screenings for The Boy and the Heron.
Yeah.
But Kevin, you saw it as well. Do you agree with everything that Dan said?
Yep. Everything that Dan said, absolutely. I'm just a sucker. I'm a huge sucker for movies where you're just hoping that the characters are going to be okay.
Yeah.
That they're going to be all right at the end. You know, I'm a sucker for movies that are like that. And Sing Sing is exactly what Dan said. It's about how the arts help us find our humanity, help us come to terms with our past and the things that we've done and the things that we can do now.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, it's also just a really good story about friendship. And it's a very moving and honest, like truthful and sentimental story about how important it is to not lose hope. And I think it really, really spoke to me at the right time, and it was one of the biggest surprises of the fest. And I completely agree. The only reason why it wasn't winner or runner up is because not enough screenings, so not enough people saw it. Yeah. Which is why I was just so ecstatic to hear that A24 has it now. And so now hearing that, I think the film is in really, really good hands.
Yeah, and Coleman Domingo was the recipient of the Actor Tribute Award at the TIFF Awards that took place. I believe it was on Saturday or Sunday night on the first weekend or something like that.
The 10th.
Yeah, the 10th. And Erik was there, and I heard he gave
It was great speech.
Yeah,
everything was about his whole life and existence is one of service. Beginning from his days working in the circus in San Francisco, and just that performance and art are a form of service. And it was just fantastic. It was such a gorgeous speech. And he did, even though he's not supposed to talk about Rustin, he did sneak in because he's kind of like going through the characters that he's played, you know, a drug dealer, a civil rights leader. And I'm like, I see you, Coleman. I know what you're doing.
Speaking of which,
really funny.
Speaking of which, too, Dan and Kevin, I know you both saw Rustin. Could you? I know Erik and I. We liked the film. I know Erik liked it a little bit more than me overall. Coming out,
I reviewed it.
He reviewed it. He did a review.
Ooh, amazing!
It was incredible. Did you do any at TIFF? Boom, 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 boom. All right. Anyway, Dan, Kevin, Dan, I'll start with you. Just quick reaction. What you thought of him and his performance and in the film overall? And
he's flawless.
Yeah,
he's literally flawless. There, even scenes that don't look like they should be, like Oscar Beatty scenes, end up being that because he's so fully invested in this character and everything he's feeling, and he really wears his heart on his sleeve in a way that is so beautiful to watch. And I don't want to hear jack shit about how conventional or competent or whatever the word du jour is about this style of movie, because I am dead serious, because I have heard those words thrown around with this movie with such abandon from people who have given so many free passes to movies about straight white men that commit the same sin of quote unquote not having an aesthetic point of view. And to me, what the beautiful thing about Rustin the movie is that it really captures his spirit as a community organizer, as someone who was doing everything he did and was ready to make sacrifices for the movement at large. And he was about creating teams of people who would do things. And if there was anyone who understood that every person had a part to play and a very important part to play, it was Bayard Rustin. And this movie is infused with that spirit. As much as it is about him, it is also about all the nameless, faceless people who worked to make the March on Washington happen, including some incredible civil rights leaders whose names have also been lost to history. And the fact that it's getting those names into people's heads and explaining who they were, and not in a way that feels pedantic at all. This movie is doing such a world of good by existing. And on top of that, he actually does have an artistic stamp on this movie. Does some really wonderful, elegant things with the editing and montage of this movie.
You're talking about George C. Wolfe, the director.
Yeah, it has maybe the most elegant transition into a flashback that I have seen in any movie this year in a long time, and it's done so well. It's not his fault that the structure of the movie only allows that to happen once, but it's there. And the screenplay, there also is a lot of that. Like, I don't want to hear it because it's again like the thing fucking plays. Like, there are so many lines that between the message of what is being said and the way Coleman Domingo says it, you cannot help but applaud.
Yeah.
And that is the heart and soul of this man. That's what he was about.
Yeah. No, I think the screenplay is great. Yeah. It's it's reason why I think it's a level up for Wolf than something like Ma Rainey for me. But,
absolutely a step up from Ma Rainey's Black Bottom. Yeah.
Kevin?
Yeah, I like the movie a lot too. I
thought you were about to give me a whole I didn't like it look. I thought for a second.
No. I did like the movie. I did like the movie a lot. It's just I feel like there's nothing I can't top what Dan said. I couldn't have said it better myself.
No, I got
honestly.
You.
Like the thing is, like, I could understand like where some people were coming from with the whole conventional thing, and sometimes I felt a little bit of it as well, but I didn't want that to get to me because I could feel that this is about the people, the logistical work, the hard logistical work to make something like this happen. And like, it can't happen without, someone leading that charge and bringing people together. And they're like often forgotten in history, exactly what Dan said. So yeah, I like the movie a lot too.
It's just got an energy to it. His performance connects within the energy that is needed to get this historic event done. And then I think that there's a moment at the end of the film when the dust is settled, that when audiences see it, I don't know how you are not like in a puddle of tears. It's so beautiful. It speaks a lot to the American spirit. And I think that it's a beautiful performance from Coleman Domingo, and one that I want a resolution to this strike from both sides that's fair to the actors and the writers, so that this man can get all the flowers that he deserves throughout this entire season, because he is someone that has been waiting a long time to get them, and he absolutely deserves them. But also I want a fair goddamn deal as well too. So if we have to wait for that, then we have to wait for it. But an Oscar nomination should do the trick as well. Okay.
Oscar win. An Oscar win would do the trick. Let's just say.
Yeah, I'd be okay with that. Yeah. It's a good performance enough for them. Yeah. I mean, we've had far worse winners in the past couple of years for conventional biopics. Right.
I'm so glad this meets Ryan's stamp of approval as the head of the Academy.
There's other performance. An
Oscar win would be okay.
No, because I don't know. I have to think about it. There's some other performances that I haven't seen, and I don't know if about yet. But of right now, yeah, he'd be one of the maybe two performances.
Real excited about Napoleon, are you?
Well, no, evidently there's a performance that's the best of somebody's career that's coming out October 20th. So we'll see. And I haven't seen Ferrari and I haven't seen The Killer. So, Okay.
No, you don't need to.
Shut up, Dan. His Three Daughters, Azazel Jacobs' film. We all saw this film. I know because
Erik!
I don't know what's going on with Erik's background, but it's His Three Daughters time. We all saw it.
Party!
Erik's having like some Zoom malfunctions behind the scenes, folks. If only you could see what we just saw. It's incredible.
He's like
he went to the club.
The most
Yeah, that
intense,
just turned into like a David Guetta concert.
Yeah, I was like,
What was going on?
like Azazel Jacobs rose up just so that we could talk about this. Erik,
for His Three Daughters.
for His Three Daughters, yeah, it's a rave.
Like, yeah.
It is a
Erik-
rave because the movie's fucking amazing.
Yeah.
Go ahead and talk about it a little bit, Erik, and what you loved about it so much, because I know it really hit you personally as you were watching it.
Oh, it was kind of silly, crazy because I don't know. I'm certainly in my era of letting like things get to me on a personal level, and this did too. It's, you know, three sisters essentially waiting for their father to die in this apartment and just digging up the rotted inside of their individual relationships with each other. And it really is a gay cornucopia of actresses with Carrie Coon and her opening monologue. Oh my God.
Oh my God.
That better be like on
So good.
a future season of Drag Race as like a lip sync challenge.
Yeah.
It's incredible. Natasha Lyonne doing very much, you know, her tried and true gruff Natasha Lyonne, but maybe more than ever finding way more vulnerability than I think she's had in 20 years, and I love her very much. But and especially by we get to the end of this, oh my God. But even with both of them, I think I was most impressed with Elizabeth Olsen, who I think has a more complicated character. Because Carrie Coon is oldest of the sisters. She's pretty rough and mean. Natasha Lyonne is kind of, what? Who cares? Just kind of just
I'm gonna smoke my pot outside.
I'll have to smoke my pot outside. And she just doesn't really want to be a part of like anything that's happening, of any of the decision making, even though she's
the one who stayed. Yeah, she's the one.
He's the one who stayed, and so she's, you know, pretty justified in that. And Olsen has this middle child syndrome feeling, even though I think maybe she's younger than the two, but she has a middle child syndrome feeling where I think from an audience perspective, she seems like the most removed. Like she has such a life outside of everything, and she's just concerned about her daughter and what she's going through. And that's sort of the perception that the sisters have too. And she becomes a much more complicated person than that. And I just think it is the more complicated role of the three. And I think she's amazing. I haven't seen her this good, or enjoyed her, maybe is the right word, since her debut. I think she's pretty breathtaking. Yeah. I'll just go with that for right now.
Okay. All right. You two, you guys want to say anything about His Three Daughters?
It hurts that no one has picked this up yet.
Yeah. It has IFC written all over it.
Yeah. Oh, don't do that. Don't do that.
I'm just saying.
That is so mean. How
It
could
does!
you say that? It
does.
does, but how could you?
Don't do that.
IFC and Indie
How
Spirit
dare you.
nominations.
How
That's
dare
what it feels
you?
like.
But so earlier when I said that American Fiction might have been the best screenplay, except for with one exception, this is that exception.
Yeah.
It is without a doubt far and away Azazel Jacobs' best movie yet. and I really liked The Lovers and French Exit a lot. But this, he's just tapped into something really, really special about human relationships and familial shit and all that. God, it's so good and so well done, and he keeps it funny in a way that feels very true to life, and that I was not expecting, given what it's about. But it has that sort of, it felt like he just set up a camera and watched these people live their lives in this situation. It feels, every interaction they have just feels so true to life. I keep coming back to that with this movie. It just feels so true to life, because I think it is. It just feels like life, and all three of them are incredible. If I had to pick a best in show, it would be just ever so slightly Natasha Lyonne, because like Erik was saying, like she just brings, this is the most toned down I think she's ever been, and just wonderful things with, we usually associate her with that voice and that big brash energy. She still has the voice, but she has none of that energy. This is really about, it's reminding what a powerful actress she can be with just her eyes and her face, and it's just really incredible stuff. And I have to say, this movie really surprised me. There is a moment in this movie where I got the biggest grimace on my face, like, oh, I think they've gone too far. I think this is not the way this should go. And then it flips it right on its head. One edit, and it took me from being like, I don't know about this movie, to being, this is the best movie. It's so otherworldly good. And
I know the exact moment, or I think I know the exact moment that you're talking about, because I was yes, yeah. I was with you on that, because that part of the third act, I was like, okay,
yeah,
we didn't need to do that. And then that happens, and I'm like, oh my God.
Yeah, it wrecked me. Yeah.
Kevin, any thoughts on it?
Yeah, I agree with everything Erik said, everything that Dan said. I love this movie very, very much. Me personally, my MVP is also Natasha Lyonne. I think her character is very, very fascinating to me, in that she, the way she actively doesn't want to participate, but we know she's been there the longest. She's the one who stayed and took care of Dad when the other two sisters were not there. And I think the script does this amazing job of just slowly brewing that tension and that conflict amongst these sisters, that finally, when things come to a head, like, I think they're so truthful and honest, and felt like I was watching some of my own extended family members at times. And I think a lot of praise needs to also go to Jacobs's directing, in that the way the apartment gets used and where the camera sits, and
the blocking, the staging.
The blocking and staging is like immaculate. Like even down to the little details of where each sister chooses to sit. And I think it's very clear that there's a lot of thought put into it. I also was a little concerned near the end, when the film makes a certain decision. I was like, are we really doing this? But then no, it works. It was it worked beautifully. But I think what worked for me even better, actually, is the literal end, when there's like a buildup of something. There's like an anticipation to something, and the punchline at the very end is literally how the film ends, like the last shot of the film, the last line you hear. I think that punchline is perfect. It's the perfect way to end that movie.
I think that they're all three fantastic. I agree with Erik, though. I think this is like Elizabeth Olsen's best work since Martha, Marcy, May, Marlene. Enough with the hand shit in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Actually learn how to take more roles like this and act, because holy shit, when she can. There's a moment where she just needs a moment of peace that I thought was truly just transcendent work from her. Carrie Coon, just that biting, annoying, know-it-all older sister. She's incredible. Natasha Lyonne, who's just at that point just doesn't give a fuck. Also want to give a Javan Adipo, who plays Benji, who is Rachel's Natasha Lyonne's Rachel character's her boyfriend in the film. He has a scene where he is literally going toe to toe with Carrie Coon, and it is as relatable as anyone has ever been. If you've been a spouse trying to deal with the bullshit of a family that you are on the outside looking in, and
So good.
and it's like, I'm not gonna, can I? And it's incredible. And like, who are you? And he like goes on to explain it. I agree. Like
his description of Elizabeth Olsen too, where he says she acts like she's on a different planet.
Yeah, it's really good stuff. I mean, like, I think for a hot second you have to get into the cadence of the film and really and kind of adjust to the real fast talking nature that this dialogue is just kind of getting thrown at you. But once you really settle into it, within like 5 minutes, you'll do okay. At least for me, because I've seen Azazel Jacobs' work. It hadn't been in a while, and so it's just like, oh my god, the shit just coming at you left and right. And she worked on The Lovers with Carrie Coon's husband, so it only made sense that he completed the work here with that partnership. But I agree. Like the third act, it could have been really, really dumb and really stupid, and also very just hammy. And it doesn't, and it's very true to the characters by the end. And
it is such a big swing from everything that we had seen up to that point. It's such a big risk.
Yeah, it would have been,
and it pays off. It's so surprising.
It was also, I think, like the best. Like, you know, TIFF sends out photos of a still from the film. You talked about it with Next Goal Wins, Eric. It's one of two films that we'll talk about here. When I think of the film and I look at that photo, I think of everything that rushes through me, and for that moment, and that moment is so emotionally impactful for the end of that film that it was like the perfect choice to use that as a photo. And we'll talk about the other one, I think, later. But yeah, it's a really special film. Somebody other than IFC, please pick it up. And
I wouldn't be mad. I wouldn't be mad ever if Carrie Coon and Elizabeth Olsen and Natasha Lyonne wanted to do a production of King Lear, because obviously there are threads in here of that, but the barest of threads.
I want them to do the Three Sisters. I want them to do.
Yes,
that's what I want.
That too.
Even the fact that one of them is always in black, like it's so much Three Sisters.
I love it.
Very much so.
We're gonna go through a couple of films. We're just gonna do some one-offs for everybody here, just to talk about them real quick, and then we'll hit on one last film as a group. But Eric, I know you and Dan and I, we all got to see those Wicked Little Lettuce.
Wicked Little Lettuce.
Gayest movie of TIFF this year.
I'm gonna hold on your response, Eric. But Dan, what did you think of Wicked Little Lettuce? You were sitting right next to me, and you were having a great old time with it. It seemed like with that film.
Look, I mean, I know that Ryan, it was very difficult for you to see a movie that was about you piss country whore.
Just because I do that isn't
your foxy ass.
Yeah, your foxy ass. Nobody uses foxy. Yeah. No. I mean, I write a lot of letters about you assholes every single week, and I send them to Erik. Yeah.
It's so funny.
It's so good.
The script is so funny, and it's just like it shouldn't be, but like there is just something that is inherently funny about people with any British accent saying curse words, and that's half the movie. It's just Olivia Colman and Jessie Buckley cursing at each other, and it's fucking great. I had a better time watching this movie than I think anything else. It's just so much fun. It has also like a surprising amount to say about the way society views women and the way religion views women. Anjana Vasan, who is woman police officer, Gladys Moss, just bow down. Like
You could just say police officer, you know.
Woman police officer.
It's a woman police
Police
officer.
So goddamn funny.
Oh.
So great. It's just so great. And Olivia, Eric said afterwards, and it's so true, like no one pulls faces like Olivia Colman.
No.
And when he said like this is literally like Jim Carrey in the Mask levels of face pulling, and every single time I was on the floor laughing because it's a lot of pulling faces, but it's every single time she's doing it to like really like stick the knife into this character and twist it around and say like she's terrible, isn't she? And it's fucking great.
Yeah.
It's nasty, it's spiteful, it's hateful, it's so much fun. It is the gayest movie I saw, and there's nothing explicitly gay about it except they're totally gay for each other. Like
it feels like the perfect Sunday brunch film to watch.
Oh,
just put
absolutely.
It on
Have a bunch of mimosas
and just be like, let him cuss all day long. It's so much. Yeah, it was a lot of fun. And we really enjoyed that one. Kevin, I want to go over to you. A film that carried over from Venice was the new Rizuke Hamaguchi film, Evil Does Not Exist. Talking about a film that's completely tonally different than what we just talked about with Wicked Little Letters. I was a little bit mixed on it. I know Erik really liked it. I'm kind of curious about your thoughts on the film overall.
Yeah, it's it's very, very different from Hamaguchi's previous film. I can say that. This is
his funniest movie by far.
This is not your talky movie. This is one of those movies where the camera sits still and we watch a guy chop wood for like 5 to 10 minutes straight. And
it's riveting.
I still quite enjoyed it though. I think it has some really interesting things to say about, the village communities, urbanization, and I think it's very well directed. It's beautifully shot and it's beautifully scored, and it's a very good use of the location. The story takes a turn near the end that really, really caught me off guard. And when I first saw it, I didn't really know what to make of it. I think I still don't really know what to make of it, other than now I think the ending now provides some really interesting context to the title of the film.
Yeah.
So that's all I can say about it. I like it enough overall, I think.
Yeah. I think I really need to see it again, because I was kind of cut off guard, I think, by the abruptness of the ending. And for a guy that gave us a 3-hour movie and really took his time, it almost felt like in the moment I told Kevin and Erik, I was like, I feel like 20 minutes is missing from this movie. But
I would have watched another 2 hours of this.
He's
I
really
was so into the characters.
He's really just got this this confidence of having the audience in the palm of his hand and really riveted. That's why I was with the film all the way until it cut, and I was like, wait, no, I want more, a little bit more, and maybe that is the point. But I still really enjoyed it, and I can't wait to see it again, and obviously I'll always see his movies. His movies are always fascinating to watch and discuss. So, Erik, you saw, I believe it was a horror film. It's called Sleep, and it was recommended by director Bong Joon-ho, and Kevin saw it as well too. But it was one of the last films that you saw right before I left, and I didn't really.
That was my last film of the festival.
That was your last film of the festival. So did you go out on a high?
It was supposed to be my first.
Oh wow!
Did you go out on a high, Erik?
A very, very high. I loved Sleep so much. It's less horror than thriller, but it's so sharp, extremely funny. It is absolutely, it sticks to to its thriller genre. It's a little bit of a ghost story. It's not exactly Rosemary's Baby, but there's like some weird possession building baby stuff in this.
Build the baby. Okay.
And Pomeranians. No, but it understands and completely lives in the framework of a ghost story thriller. It doesn't bend those frames too much, but it doesn't really need to, because it's so sharp, so funny. Yeah, it's definitely something I want to watch again too.
Yeah,
because I don't know, I just loved it.
That's great. Oh, that's great to hear. All right, last two films that we're going to talk about. They're both completely different from each other, but we'll talk about. There were two Venice titles that got brought over to the festival, but they got big audience reactions. The first one was the new film from Richard Linklater, starring Glen Powell. I have to say it like that because I've been saying it differently all week. And it's called Hitman, and it is, I think, Linklater's best film in a long, long time. I absolutely love this film. I had a great goddamn time with it. I just feel like when Richard Linklater is working at this kind of level, the highs are really high in this. It reminded me a lot of Bernie. Reminded me a lot of his early stuff, and just really getting to work in New Orleans and working with Glen Powell, who is somebody that he has really brought up since Everybody Wants Some, and has worked with a couple of times in between. But this is really a showcase to show him and show all of him, because good Lord, that man is beautiful. And
not quite all of him. They needed to show a little bit more.
Wow.
Leave the audience wanting more. But
at least Chris Pine got to show most everything.
But this is a good movie, Dan. But hey. But I just thought it was a really firecracker screenplay. Linklater very confident, and felt also too. This is the second time he's taken a story from Texas Monthly, which is a local magazine down here, and really expanded it. The last time he did it was Bernie, and there's just these real intimate and unique and funny stories that he's able to inject himself into, and he gets to have a lot of fun with it. You could tell that he was having a ton of fun making this, and wasn't so self-serious and trying to make a romantic film or make a movie that's 5 minutes every 18 years or whatever. It's just simply, let me go to New Orleans and make this little fun little kind of caper film about it, like a guy who is trying to trick people into deals as a hitman, and I just thought it was a lot of fun, and it reminded me a lot. Eric and I were talking about it. It reminded me a lot of like Out of Sight vibes it was giving me throughout the film, and I love that film, and so I definitely loved it. Eric, I know you really liked this one a lot as well. We had a lot of fun watching this one.
I was laughing my ass off. It was really hilarious. And it's, using a premise of trying to make somebody who is, unspeakably hot, schlubby and sexless and just like a cat loving
put
nerd.
Some glasses on him and move his hair to the side.
Yeah, grease his hair and put some glasses on him. It's basically like the 90s and 2000s movie where like a girl just had to take her glasses off, and then the guy says like, "Oh my God, you're hot."
Put a beige shirt on him.
Yeah. It's kind of what this is like. So the suspension of disbelief of that is so unbelievably high, even more so than the premise of the movie, that you're like, why is everybody not tripping over their dicks to just jump on Glen Powell right now? But that's part of the joke. That's kind of part of why it's really, really funny. On top of the fact that Powell is such a great comedian, the amount of costumes and characters that he puts on during his undercover
so good
is so ridiculous. It's like Austin Powers fucking stupid in the best way.
There's one that we almost thought, is that Tilda Swinton? Like it was scary how good he
awesome.
was in that.
You mean with the little berries and cream hair?
Yeah. It was incredible. Yeah.
I love this movie so much.
Why
has no one bought this?
I can only assume that there's a huge bidding war for it.
There's it has to be. I don't know where it will end up. That's the thing.
Else people are just scared because they think they need Powell to promote it. And
I don't know. I think you can
strike.
get.
I don't know.
I don't know.
I mean, that's definitely why we've only had 2 major buys.
Yeah.
TIFF is usually such a massive sales market. The Holdovers was bought here last year.
Yeah, I think
it's a big sales market.
It could be a movie though that they hold over, no pun intended, until I couldn't help myself, but until next year to hopefully have him on the trail. I mean, it feels very much like a March, April release because that's where most of his films usually end up at. But then his last film, the Apollo 8.5 film, that was at Netflix, and so he's worked with smaller studios mostly.
But this is his best movie since Dazed and Confused. So
we've talked about this and your hatred for the Before trilogy. So it's sorry, Before lovers. Whoops.
I sincerely.
School of Rock also exists, and
I love School of Rock. I like this better.
Okay. Kevin, what do you think of Hitman? Did you really like it too?
Oh yeah, everything Erik said about it. I love the movie very much, and seeing it at the premiere, the crowd just ate it up completely. And honestly, for a moment, like the way the crowd was responding to it, I was like, "Holy shit, this feels like a South by Southwest movie."
Yeah,
like the way we were just all laughing and clapping to it. There's a particular. I'm going to call it a sequence. There's a particular sequence between Glenn Powell and Adria Arjona. Is that the right way to say her name?
Yes.
Where they're just going at each other with their dialogue, and it's perfect,
inventive, just a super, like you wouldn't think of it, but it's great. I love it.
It's so great. It's so much fun. I'm glad that Linklater just like fuck it. I want to make something really, really fun. And that's the way he sounded in the Q&A after as well. He's like, I just wanted to make something funny and entertaining, man. I think that's
I love it.
That's for the better. Wait. Like he gives the movie this not only energy but confidence. Like you're just confident. Like I don't care where this movie's going to go because I know that I'm going to have a fun time.
Yeah. And he takes liberties with the story and he doesn't give a shit because it's like, yeah, this whole thing is ridiculous. So why don't I just make it ridiculous? And who gives a shit? And I don't have to explain myself later. And it's very confident work from him because like it always, I'm like, he's always felt like he's making over the last couple of years, he's made some real just like head scratching decisions like Last Flag Flying and Where You Go Bernadette and shit. Like you're just like, this isn't you. This is like some guy that's trying to literally chase an Oscar when and he's better with like the everybody wants us, the Dazed and Confused, the Bernies of these hangout movies. Yeah, where you get to really just explore one character and have fun and it's good humor and it ages really well and he works with a stable of actors throughout his career and if he's going to work with Glenn Powell for like the next 10-15 years, I'm all for it because he's fantastic. This is probably his best performance to date so far. But anywho, the last film we're going to talk about was a film that premiered at the Venice Film Festival, and it was Ava DuVernay's Origin. Kevin, I don't believe you saw it, and Dan, I don't believe you saw it, but Erik and I did see it. I was kind of floored by this movie, and I believe you were as well, right, Erik?
Very, very much so. Yes, very much so. Yeah. It's it's an incredibly clever construction from its source material of cast, which is basically a history book, really.
Yeah.
And it's honestly everything is that Florida is afraid of, that CRT is. It really is. This is actually what schools should be taught, is this, because it's about an understanding of how racism did not end at slavery. It did not end at Jim Crow. It did not end in 1964. It did not end. It hasn't ended because there's always a building block that is put in front of the thing that they just got rid of. And that's just kind of how it's been in the United States since the beginning. But in deciding to make the movie about the creation of Isabel Wilker's book and casting Anjanou Ellis Taylor as Wilkerson in her journey, and then utilizing the book as the discussion points and as the sidebars, I just thought it was ingenious. I thought they were perfectly constructed. Ellis Taylor is devastatingly good.
Amazing performance.
It's DuVernay's best film. I don't even think that is really even close. It's her biggest. It's her
best narrative. I would say.
Like I mentioned before, it's her biggest swing.
Yeah,
for sure. Because Selma's great. It's very traditional in its depiction and construction. This is not. This feels like a mix of a docudrama and a narrative feature together, as it should. John Bernthal, maybe like the nicest character he's ever played in a movie, ever, TV show, anything ever
still
that
so
he's
hot.
ever played.
Still so hot, so hot.
Yeah.
Audra McDonald, who has kind of like 2 scenes in Rustin and one really good one. She has like 2-ish scenes in here and one really, really, really good one.
It reminded me of Brian Tyree Henry and If Bill Street Could Talk. Just kind of like an actor comes in and knocks it out of the park in one scene and just tears the roof down. Yeah.
There's this was an interesting movie to see with the Q&A because there were people around me that were very physically and emotionally moved. And when it came time to ask questions, because I mean, what we see in the movie are slave ships and just really intense violence and reenactments of it. And the first question that was asked was essentially, these are very traumatic, triggering things for Black people to have to recreate. And what did you do and how did you maintain a safety for them? And I'm so happy for that question, because that's all I could think about. There's a sequence in it of this young boy who wants to go swimming with his friends, and it's a whites only pool, so he can't. He's with his little league friends, and they just
hit like the home run for the
he won the game for the team.
Yeah.
And the white boys on the team get to swim and play, and he doesn't, and there's more to it than that. And that's all I could think about is how do you explain to this child, he's an actor, but how do you explain to, as a child, what is really happening here? And that just kind of goes to how would you do that in real life, not in a movie? How do you explain the history of growing up and being Black in America and what that means? And I don't know. It was It was incredible.
Yeah, it's an incredible film. I think it is one of the best films of the year. Absolutely, no doubt about that. A truly necessary film. I hate when people say that movies are necessary, certain films are necessary, but I really, when I was watching, I was like, this is a movie that I think really everyone should watch, and it's about caste, which is not. It's not just about the racism that happens here in this country to Black people, but it is about, tying it together with the Holocaust and oppressions around the world, and how this is a systematic problem.
Caste system.
Yes, and how it's a systematic problem of humanity at large. And I think that there's a couple of conversations that she has in Germany with this at a dinner table with this white scholar that she's there with, and it was really interesting to then read reactions afterwards. And I think the movie it's tough to, you could say it's tough to watch, but it's also just like, I don't know if it's tough to watch as much as it's just, you have to sit there and experience it and feel it and let it and feel this truth being told. And people that say, oh, it's tough, or it's going to be difficult for this, it's like, why is it tough for you? Why is it tough for you, white critic out there?
Why is that? It's just,
it felt like a lot of the reactions I read online were
yes.
from, not from us, but were negative on the film. We're saying it was true, because we're very high on the film. That it's a tough movie in a tough sell. And it's like, no, it's not. It's tough for you to get through. Why is that? And that's a fascinating conversation to have. You know what I mean?
It's just very coded language. Calling something tough to watch is
oh, I know. But just
to me, like calling something a crowd pleaser, it's equally as offensive.
No, I agree. It's like what Dan. It's like Dan saying, like, we're not. What I'm saying is I'm not going to take that with this film, because I think it's the same shit that people get away with calling Spike Lee movies messy, and saying that it's a mess, so therefore discard it. Don't consider it. And
messy isn't always bad, though.
It's not but the way people use it is an excuse to just say, oh, well, it's messy and you don't need to see it or whatever. It's not going to be a real thing. And, and then I think that this, you're right, Erik. I think that this is Ava's best work to date, as on the narrative side of things. Her television work for When They See Us, I think, is absolutely fantastic still. And that's,
yes.
And her documentary work on 13th is extraordinary work there too. But as narrative feature film, this is her best work. And it blends, I think, the work of something like 13th and of When They See Us together to create this. And I think Aunjanue Ellis Taylor, I mean, it's the Best Actress is becoming a very crowded field very quickly. But I would love to see her get nominated again. I think she's fantastic. Niecy Nash is fantastic. In as her cousin in this film, they have some scenes together that's great. I think Bernthal once again is really good, even though I could always use more John Bernthal in movies. And Audrey McDonald, I mean, my God, just those scenes. And then it seemed like the real person that she used for that pool sequence to talk to her in the film. And I don't know, it's a big swing, and I think it really connects for the most part. And it's kind of great to see that after something like A Wrinkle in Time, where she tried to take this big swing with a big studio project and it didn't work out, she's not afraid to come with something like this and really do something with that could have just been conventional, I think, but the material is very tough to adapt, but she does a great job at really laying it out and explaining it and showing it, and it's astonishing work by Ava DuVernay.
I think it's really interesting that we started this talking about American Fiction and we are ending it talking about Origin, because the connection between the two is so crystal clear, because everything that American Fiction is talking about is is what we're talking about right now with Origin.
Mhm.
That story, that Black stories really have to and only be told through the lens of their trauma and their pain, and that they are celebrated by white audiences for being raw and real and a tough watch. It's literally everything that American fiction is kind of
Speaking
not
of,
mocking, but like angry about.
yeah,
Not angry enough, but angry about.
but that
And
also
that
that
doesn't
also
diminish
no.
Origin at all, at least not in this conversation or in the comparison. But it is very interesting that
A
this is
fascinating
the
connection.
bookend.
Yeah. But I also, again, I think it is. The film was also touching on a lot of other things other than just
Yes,
Black trauma.
absolutely.
Either. So it's not
that's
just
one of the that's the
know.
best thing about Cass is stepping outside of just that to make the connection that is outside the United States, that this
Yeah.
is a world issue of how people always need to have somebody that's going to be below them so that
Yeah.
they can feel even one step above somebody else.
Yeah.
If you are one step above the person in India that's literally cleaning the shit out of a toilet, you are better than one person. And that is a feeling and a status that keeps systems like that in place.
Yeah.
It's fascinating.
Truly fascinating. The movie will be released by Neon sometime later this year. Was sold to Neon, passed off by Netflix. Interesting, right? Wouldn't you say?
Well, I mean, it was Array. Array is the production company, and they had a relationship with Netflix, and it began there, but not like
Yeah.
officially.
Yeah. Could be a big player. I hope so. We'll see how it plays throughout, if it makes more of the festival runs, and we'll all see it in a Neon box set later this winter. So, all right, that is it for our TIFF episode coverage for 2023. But before we get out of here, Dan Bayer, can you tell everybody out there where they can find you and all your work? And since we haven't talked enough about movies today, give us one movie that we didn't talk about from the festival that you wanted to highlight.
One?
Just one. We don't, that you just like, we're still top of the list, but we didn't get to talk. I know you saw like 900 films, Dan. So just one, just one film that you want to mention to the audience members to check out when it's released later, maybe this year or early next year.
Okay, well, first of all, you can find me on the social media networks, or formerly known as Twitter, at Dance and Dan on Film. You can find me in Letterboxd and post at Dance and Dan. You can find my writing here on AwardsWatch and also at Next Best Picture. And God, I mean, okay, I mentioned this in passing because I know you guys talked about it already because it was a Telluride, but I loved Fingernails. I thought that was great. It's so good. But the one that I want to just shine a light on, Dear Jassy, the Tarsem's first film in 8 years, which won the prize in the platform section at TIFF. No one has picked it up yet, and I understand why. It is a tough sell, as they say. It is, this really slow-moving, brutal film about a real-life Romeo and Juliet-ish couple, and how the customs and religion and all of these the caste system in Indian society caused a great tragedy for them, and it was in the news, and it was a big news story, especially because the girl Jessie, she was Canadian. She was born in, her parents had emigrated from India to Canada, and she lived there, and it became a big deal because they had to decide if they were going to extradite her mother and uncle to investigate in this murder. It is a brutal, brutal movie to watch because you know how it ends, and the film takes a page from Romeo and Juliet and is very clear upfront about how it ends. But it locks into this like very like day in the life kind of groove where you're just spending time with these people, and it takes a lot of, it is not an anti-romantic movie, but it takes a lot of the rush and thrill of the romance out so that it just becomes like this fact that they're in love. And you also see the fact of how awful people from his side of the tracks are treated, and you see the fact of how wealthy her side of the family is, and you see all these things, and they all slowly accumulate over the course of the film until all of a sudden you're just on high alert because something's going to happen, but you don't know what and you don't know when, and then it happens, and it's just awful, and it's gutting, and it's because he is so restrained. He's usually, you think of Tarsem and you think of The Cell, or you think of The Fall, or you think of Immortal as these big movies with these big artistic swings, and he does none of that here. It's all very muted and restrained, but in service of the story. And it just, that ending left me gobsmacked. And I was super impressed by it and very moved, and it was one of the most impactful films that I saw, one of the ones that I've been just thinking about ever since I saw it.
Okay. All right. Kevin, same stuff. Where can we find you? And one last film that you want to recommend to everybody out there?
Well, since Dan technically mentioned 2 movies, I am also going to mention 2 movies.
Good Lord.
You can find my work on Film Inquiry and That Shelf and AwardsWatch, and I'm on Twitter at KLEE_film review. Since we only talked about one animated movie that was here at TIFF, I think it's a good idea for both of my recommendations to be animated movies. They are Robot Dreams and The Peasants. Robot Dreams being the latest animated movie that Neon just picked up, is a wordless silent film about a dog who is lonely and needs a friend, and so he builds himself a robot. And this takes place in New York City, in a world where there are no humans, they're all animals. And I think it is such a sweet, beautiful, moving, simple story that taps into our need for a friend and our desire to just not be alone. And it's based on a graphic novel, and I think director Pablo Berger just takes it to a really beautiful cinematic level that I think feels like an homage to the silent films long ago. But I think it's such one of my recent favorite representations of New York City. Funny enough, my favorite representations of New York City this year only come from animated films. So Robot Dreams, absolutely check it out. You'd be surprised at how moved you would be hearing the song September by Earth, Wind and Fire. And then the other animated film is The Peasants, which is brought to you by the filmmakers behind Loving Vincent, which came out a few years ago. This, once again, is put together by watercolor paintings. I think the introduction to this film, they mentioned that it's a total of 40,000 paintings that made this movie. And visually, of course, it is stunning, but I think the music is what really sells the film, as it explores this village of peasants and this one girl who is forced to marry a much older man without her choosing. And I think it balances the story of groupthink and even witch hunting with the story of this one woman's quest for independence and self-freedom. And I think when it really gets going, when you really become absorbed in the story, it's heartbreaking, and really upsetting, but then at the same time also strangely beautiful and empowering. And so I think it's definitely worth checking out.
All right, and awesome. Erik Anderson. One film.
Okay, so I'm going to pick The Teacher's Lounge, which, as we were talking about Monster and even a separation of how these stories of like adults and children are told, how these dynamics and are told. The story of this teacher who really, seems and looks and feels like a great teacher who was 100% there for her students, and very defensive of them. One is accused of theft, and it becomes a really like public display of it. And she's on the very small board of teachers, which also includes 2 students. It's absolutely fascinating. These are, again, like junior high level students, and they are, in this group with teachers making evaluations and choices and as democratically as possible, or seemingly democratically as possible, for this school. And from that moment on, things spiral so out of control for her that teachers are against her, students are against her, parents are against her. She goes from the beginning of really looking and feeling like a hero and a savior to absolutely underwater. It is such a fascinating thriller type of story. It's only like 95 minutes. It's beautifully tight. The score is mostly this like plinking violin that is like a metronome, which makes it even more tense. This is Germany's international feature film selection for the Oscar. Sony Pictures Classics is putting it out. Do not miss this. It is absolutely phenomenal. I was riveted to the very, very end.
Okay. And where can we find you and all your work on the internet? Dude, you didn't do it either.
AwardsWatch.com, and the newsletter will be back this week after not doing one during the entire festival. Both festivals, like a lazy idiot.
No,
Sorry.
it's okay.
I know.
You can find all my work here at awardswatch.com. You can find me on Twitter, Instagram, Letterboxd, Ryan McQuade 77. Please go and rate, review, and subscribe over on Spotify, as well as over on iTunes, and give us 5-star ratings, reviews. We really appreciate those. Anything lower than 5 stars, it's not cool. While you're also,
it'll make Kevin cry.
Yeah, it will. And nobody wants that. But if you love our podcast also too, please go ahead and listen to Director Watch. We're in the middle of a Denis Villeneuve series. I believe the next episode is Arrival, which comes out on Thursday. And we had the lovely Zach Laws on there. Truly a fun, wild episode. That one is. I can attest to it because we've already recorded it, and it was all the silly, fun goodness, but also really great conversation that you expect from Director Watch. And the one movie I would recommend is the one movie that is probably my biggest surprise of the festival at how much I loved it, and it lingered with me, and that is Franco's Memory, with Peter Sarsgaard and Jessica Chastain. It's really, I don't really want to give too much away about this, but Franco is really a director that is very hit or miss for me, and can go into places that I really do not like. And I think this movie kind of plays on the audience in a way of, if you understand his work and know his work, there is always this sense of terror. I found it absolutely chilling and nerve-wracking as this film unfolds, and it's it's a sort of a relationship film between Peter Sarsgaard, who is losing his memory, and Jessica Chastain, who's this social worker. And how would you describe her, Eric? She's someone that her memory isn't always the best either, about her past events and things of that nature. And
she works at a facility. She calls it an adult daycare facility, and it's for adults that have mental illnesses that don't allow them to be unsupervised. Yeah, and she sort of starts taking care of him after a high school reunion get together, and the way that they sort of first interact that's a pretty big jump. It's a giant jump from where. No, I mean that's missing a tremendous amount of detail. But I know, why. Yeah, I don't really want to talk too much about spoilers. I don't want to. But all I'll say is that these are two extraordinary performances. I think Chastain is absolutely fantastic in this. Evidently she picked out her own clothes at Target, so good for her. But Peter Sarsgaard, that whole story. I know, right? Peter Sarsgaard, though, he won the best actor over at Venice, and I think he is really, really good in here. And I think that when you play somebody that has memory loss, you could get really hammy with it, and it can feel really just you could lose the audience. And I think you really have sympathy for him by the end of the film. And there's one shot in particular, and it's at night, and he has to decide whether or not he's going to go into one room or the other. And I think I was on the edge of my seat more than probably any film at the festival, at just like, please, praying to God that movie makes the right decision, because otherwise the movie will fall apart. It feels like it is dancing on a line, and if it goes over, this movie would be an abomination, and it's not. It's actually quite beautiful, and I hope that a lot of people get to see it. I don't know who has it. The Mubi. That's right. So get your subscriptions now to Mubi. But I really, really like that film, and I can't wait to see it again, because I also think too, you gotta kind of watch it again to pick apart some of the little things that you might miss in it as well too. I know you liked it as well, Eric. It was I did. I liked it more in thinking about it than I did initially, because I mean, it's not spoiling anything to say that Sarsgaard's character has dementia. That's the whole point of his storyline. And I think the way that the film handles his dementia, both in how it's presented and how characters react and interact with it, sometimes is a little specious, a little bit. Especially Chastain's character. But knowing her own past and history makes it make a little bit more sense. But it doesn't take away from how really, really good they both are. Yeah. She is almost like scary good. Yeah, it's been a long time since I've really attached to a Jessica Chastain performance like that in a while. Yeah, she's really good. She's really good. Okay, well, that is our 2023 TIFF episode. Thank you all so much for listening. We'll be back next week. We will be talking about our top 5 directorial debuts in honor of Netflix's Fair Play and a bunch of other directorial debuts that have come out this year at the festivals that have already been a strong year for directorial debuts. So we might as well talk about the topic at large. So thank you all so much for listening, and we will see you all next time.